Okay, so I'm here with Vanessa. She's writer, producer, stand-up comedian, but here to talk about Soy Milk. Welcome to Brussels. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, I have actually taken the time to read through a good portion of your script. I say a good portion, some bits and pieces. Please tell us what is the synopsis of the script.
Well, it's
We've spoken before, but you're going to have to do this again. Go on.
it's basically about my father, who's bipolar,
Yeah.
and him growing up in New York in an Italian Catholic family in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and becoming
70s, down the 70s, I think.
yeah,
isn't it?
70s, 80s, the last 70 years, and becoming a doctor and being faced with small town corruption, and then becoming bipolar.
So the bit I was reading, well, there's a couple of things I've made notes about here, apart from the fact that you reference a Pontiac GTO, which I assume your father actually owned. There's a car reference in there.
Yes.
Okay, did he actually own one of those?
A Cadillac?
No, you've got I put a Pontiac GTO in here.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, he did. Okay, I don't know why. I just thought I'd throw that in there. Can you tell me about the Catholic side of it? Because there's some interesting stuff in there about that. When I think that when you're in the church and they're singing in the altar boys, and how did that all come about? I mean, does Catholicism play a large part in your life?
Well, the thing is, sometimes when people become bipolar, they become, or mentally ill, they become sort of hyper obsessed with religion.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the majority, or at least a good chunk of my childhood. I felt like religion was sort of crammed down my throat.
Yeah.
But initially, for him, it was a very grounding, familial thing, and it brought everyone together, going to church and cooking, and very Italian, very Catholic tradition. And I think it's a beautiful thing. It's just when you're mentally ill, it can be taken to the extreme. And he became very obsessed with religion and hearing the voices of God.
And when did this start? When did the illness begin? Or when did it become noticeable?
Well, in the script, I think there's a scene where he starts talking to himself in the garage.
Yeah.
And my mom at the time, she was like, "That's kind of weird."
Is that a reality?
Yeah, that
Right,
actually
okay.
happened.
Yeah.
And it was sort of a build-up, if with the script, like in the story. I mean, a lot of it is very real to life, in the sense that
Well, they say write what you know, don't they? So.
yeah, right. That he worked long hours, and back then they really worked the doctors.
Yeah.
They did everything, that they were like multiple jobs and worked for days on end, and then I think there was this desire to try to please other people, and compiled with stress and depression. And if you're genetically prone to be mentally ill, you're more, it's something that's going to develop. And plus he started to use medications, so it was, this buildup, and him not being able to really handle being threatened, I think led him to sort of just a breakdown altogether. But he was, probably bipolar for a long time, but it just didn't fully manifest until it all kind of came to a head with the drama of his life and the stress and the pills.
And what about, because you put it all in the script, so it's quite raw in terms of it's your life. But I know there's elements in it, of course, which may not have happened, or you embellished or underplayed or whatever you did to make the script that it was. But a kind of feeling I get is, I'd be very uncomfortable talking about anything to do with my family that's very personal, because most people would. But you've got to kind of take that into consideration and be absolutely sure you want to do it. And I guess I'm struggling knowing that I couldn't do that. So it'd be quite interesting to know how. What was the point where you decided, no, I'm going to? Because I'm guessing you had reservations about doing it.
It's a very emotional experience writing it. I mean, it's also very therapeutic, but I didn't want it to feel like me just vomiting on a page, and I think that's why it took a long time to really work through. But I think if you're able to write about your personal experiences, especially with mental illness, it offers support for other people out there who are going through it or who have family members, because it's not something that just goes away. You know, it's really, if you're really mentally ill, you're really mentally ill, and there's no way around it. So you have to accept the person as they are, and you have to love them or not. And I hope that doing the art and writing about it and, you know, making it happen offers some sort of comfort and support for other people.
And and we didn't mention this, but I know that you're a comedian. So it's kind of like a paradox to me, almost, that you can talk about these really funny things, and yet this is something that's going to the very low points. And, you know, to be able to switch between the two seems quite profound, really. I don't know how you managed to be able to. I mean, I'm not saying that you were working at a stand-up bar in New York 1 minute and writing part of the script the next, but for all I know, you might have been doing that. I don't know. It's just, it'd be interesting to know how you balance the two, because they're massively different in terms of the work that you do.
Well, that's what comedy is. It's tragedy plus time, like Woody Allen said, and even someone before Woody Allen said it. Like you know, you take the things that are really messed up in your life and you process them, and then you write them and work them out, and they become funny, because everybody goes through difficult times. But if we can laugh about them, then we can actually heal from them. And even though this is a drama, I mean, there's still comedy in it, like him going to a whorehouse in Mexico. I mean, like things like that.
Tick.
You know, and
hold on, whorehouse. Where was that? In where? Mexico.
You know, the people he encountered and the situations he put himself in. Yes, I mean, you have to be maybe a little bit crazy sometimes to put yourself in these situations and do things with people who really aren't trustworthy, but at the same time there's a humor in it, because we all do crazy things at some point. Of course we do, yeah. And people are really, I mean, if you just sit in a room and listen to people walking by, people say funny things. Like, you don't have to embellish. It's like, people are really crazy.
No, it reminds me of this filmmaker I know, filmmakers Chuck and Steve. They've got That's Opportunity Knocking here. It's a short comedy. You might have seen it, but he told me, Chuck told me this really funny story, or interesting story. They were in an airport. He's always got pen and paper with him, and they were in an airport in wherever it was, and I can't remember, he did tell me. And he happened to be sitting next to this couple, I think it was, and the bloke or the woman said this really funny line, and he was like, oh, that's brilliant. And he wrote it down, he actually used it. And he said, because you never know when it's going to happen, right? Because people say the oddest things, don't they?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I suppose that's it. It's just picking up those one-liners. And you're absolutely right about the darkness of comedy. I mean, I can think of a whole host of comedians that were manic depressives. These are well-known UK comedians that you may not know, but they had a really dark side to them, and they struggle with their demons. And I guess maybe that is the antithesis of the comedy. But yeah, you know, Peter Sellers is a famous one, or a name that comes to mind. And because we don't know what these people are like, do we, behind closed doors? You can't be funny all the time, can you?
No, and a lot of people, it's like the crying clown, you know, a lot of people who are laughing are really crying inside. But unless you've done a lot of therapy.
Well, yeah, I have. Have you done loads of therapy? Okay. So
a lot of acupuncture too.
No, does it work?
Yeah, it does. It's really amazing. Yeah.
So is it an instant hit, or is it like a time lapse hit when you're doing that? So what I'm saying is, they're getting the needles in, which sounds bloody painful to me, but is it? I'm not saying it's euphoric, but is that feeling of change in the way you feel? Is that instant, or is it over a matter? How does it work?
Well, it's very relaxing, and it sort of like releases your energy. I mean, I'm not a
No, but
specialist,
it's
but
intriguing
like,
to but it's intriguing to know the difference between you walking in and you walking out.
sometimes it feels a little. You might feel a little if you're like tense, you might feel a little tight afterwards, but then over the next few days you just feel better, you feel more relaxed. It like clears you of your issues. I don't know, because like if I do it in the neck, like it's the tension from the neck or the head, you know, so whatever stress you have like gets released.
And how can it not? 'Cause I always think it's going to be painful, but it isn't painful.
Sometimes it pinches if it's on like a nerve that's painful, but it's not like you don't
it's not
stick
like
an injection.
Yeah,
in,
yeah,
it's
they're
not
quite.
like
Yeah,
that.
I know. But,
Yeah.
oh, God, the inside. Can we move on, please?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
No. Bowling for concubines, not bowling for Columbine, which is presumably a take on that title. But please tell me, because I believe it's a short film that you're working on at the moment, and has the film. Whereabouts are you in the production side of something? What is this about?
Well, it's a film that just basically took the Bowling for Columbine
Yeah.
and turned it to Bowling for Concubines, because I, was playing with the title years ago. I'm like, what if it was Bowling for Concubines? And people thought it was amusing, so I was like, okay, let's write something about that. And it became more about sex trafficking and violence against women, and how a game could be deal with the issues. It is a dark comedy.
Oh, right, okay.
It just deals with a really serious issue,
Right.
which is violence against women and sex trafficking. I would like to put it together with other projects I have and do it as like a series of shorts, but in one big project. So that's what I would like, but I have so many projects that I've written that I'm just trying to sort of see what I can actually feasibly do myself without, I guess, relying on anyone else. And you come to a point where you're just like, you know what, I can do this myself.
And whereabouts are you in the cycle with this film? Is it started? Is it happened? Or is it happening? Or
Well, it's a big short, so it's like I would want someone else to direct it, and I just want to be in it. But at this point, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get my own camera, and I'm going to start filming myself. So that's kind of the point that I've come to.
Brilliant. That's it, Vanessa.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful.